My name is Jean, and I'm 68 years old. Losing my son Jeffrey to cancer tore my heart into pieces I thought could never be reassembled. But what happened next broke me completely. The day after his funeral, my daughter-in-law Cassandra looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Don't be dramatic, pack your bags, and learn to survive." With nowhere to go, I lived in my car for 2 weeks, wondering how my life had fallen apart so completely. Let me know where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button. Losing a child was painful enough, but being thrown out of the home I helped build was even crueler. 25 years ago, I lost my husband Harold to a car accident on a rainy October night. At 43, I suddenly became a widow, raising our 15-year-old son alone. Jeffrey and I developed a special bond through our shared grief. He was my world, and I poured everything into making sure he had every opportunity possible. "Mom, it's just you and me now," Jeffrey told me at Harold's funeral, his young hand squeezing mine with surprising strength. "We'll take care of each other." And we did. I worked 2 jobs to support us, administrative assistant by day and bookkeeper for local businesses on evenings and weekends. Jeffrey never complained about my long hours, instead developing an independence and work ethic that would serve him well throughout his life. He helped with chores, maintained excellent grades, and even took a part-time job at 16 to contribute to household expenses. Against the odds, Jeffrey earned a scholarship to Boston University and later attended law school at Northwestern. I still remember the pride that swelled in my chest when he passed the bar exam and accepted a position at Peterson & Williams, a prestigious real estate law firm in downtown Chicago. "This is as much your achievement as it is mine, Mom," he told me at his swearing-in ceremony. "I never would have made it here without you." By 30, Jeffrey had become a junior partner specializing in commercial real estate law. His career flourished, and he purchased a comfortable condo in Lincoln Park. He insisted I retire early from my administrative job at 55, setting up monthly transfers to supplement my modest savings. "You worked too hard for too long," he explained. "It's my turn to take care of you now." 8 years ago, Jeffrey met Cassandra at a charity gala for the Chicago Bar Association. She was striking, tall, blonde, and confident working in pharmaceutical sales. Their courtship was whirlwind, and I noticed how Jeffrey seemed captivated by her sophistication and social connections. "She's amazing, Mom," he gushed during our weekly dinners. "I've never met anyone like her." I was happy for my son, though I noticed subtle changes in our relationship. Our Sunday dinners became less frequent. Jeffrey's calls grew shorter. Still, I supported their relationship wholeheartedly, wanting nothing but joy for my only child. The wedding was lavish, far more extravagant than anything our family was accustomed to. Cassandra's parents contributed minimally, leaving Jeffrey to shoulder most expenses. I offered my life savings to help, but he refused. "Keep your money, Mom. I'm doing well, and this is important to Cassandra." After the honeymoon, I began noticing concerning signs. Cassandra's demeanor toward me shifted when Jeffrey wasn't present. The warm smiles disappeared, replaced by curt responses and impatient sighs. During family gatherings, she'd often pull Jeffrey away for important conversations, leaving me alone with guests I barely knew. "Cassandra's just adjusting to married life," Jeffrey assured me when I gently broached the subject. "She comes from a different background. Give her time." 3 years into their marriage, Jeffrey and Cassandra decided to purchase their dream home in Lake Forest, an affluent suburb north of Chicago. The 5-bedroom colonial with manicured gardens and a 3-car garage cost nearly $1 million. "It's a stretch financially," Jeffrey admitted when showing me the listing. "But Cassandra loves it, and with both our incomes we can make it work eventually." I knew they were struggling with the down payment. Interest rates had risen, and Jeffrey's bonus that year had been smaller than expected. Without hesitation, I offered the $150,000 I'd saved over decades. "Mom, that's your retirement safety net," Jeffrey protested. "What good is a safety net if I can't use it to help my only child?" I countered. "Besides, I have my pension and Social Security. I'll be fine." The money came with one verbal agreement. If I ever needed a place to stay, their home would always be open to me. Jeffrey agreed immediately, grateful and somewhat emotional at my gesture. "You'll always have a home with us, Mom," he promised. "This house will be your security, too." The first 5 years in the Lake Forest home were mostly pleasant. I visited regularly, helping with gardening and cooking Sunday dinners. Jeffrey's law practice thrived, and he opened his own boutique firm, specializing in real estate transactions for high-net-worth clients. Cassandra advanced in her pharmaceutical sales career, frequently traveling for conferences and meetings. The first real fissure appeared when I temporarily moved in after breaking my wrist in a fall. Jeffrey insisted I stay with them during my 6-week recovery, since managing alone in my apartment would be difficult. "It's only temporary, Cassandra," Jeffrey assured his increasingly irritated wife. "Mom needs help right now." By week 3, Cassandra's complaints about lack of privacy and needing space became daily occurrences. She began working later, scheduling more business trips, and spending weekends visiting her sister in Michigan. The tension was palpable, but I tried to make myself as unobtrusive as possible, even though simple tasks like dressing remained challenging with my injury. I returned to my apartment as soon as possible, 2 weeks before the doctor recommended. Jeffrey protested, but I could see the relief in his eyes, not for himself, but for the peace it would bring to his increasingly strained marriage. Everything changed the day Jeffrey came home from a routine physical complaining of unusual fatigue and discomfort in his abdomen. Additional tests revealed the unthinkable stage 4 liver cancer already spread to his lymph nodes. The prognosis was devastating, 6 months at most. My strong, brilliant 40-year-old son was dying. "We'll fight this," I told him, holding back tears as we sat in the oncologist's office. "We'll get second opinions, try experimental treatments." Jeffrey nodded, but his eyes held a knowledge I wasn't ready to accept. He had already understood what I couldn't bear to acknowledge. This battle was unwinnable. The weeks following Jeffrey's diagnosis passed in a blur of oncologist appointments, treatment consultations, and late-night research sessions. I moved into their guest room without discussion. My son needed me, and for once, Cassandra didn't object. "The chemotherapy is palliative, not curative," Dr. Winters explained gently during our first oncology appointment. "It might buy some time and ease symptoms, but you should prepare yourselves." Jeffrey approached his illness with the same methodical determination he applied to his legal cases. He organized his medical information in color-coded folders, researched every treatment option, and maintained a daily journal of symptoms and medications. But as weeks progressed, his energy waned, and the vibrant man who once argued complex cases in court struggled to climb the stairs to his bedroom. While I threw myself into caregiving, Cassandra's behavior became increasingly distant. Her business trips multiplied often, leaving me alone to manage Jeffrey's care for days at a time. "She's dealing with this in her own way." Jeffrey defended her when I gently questioned her absences. "Some people can't handle sickness. Please understand, Mom." But understanding became more difficult when I noticed Cassandra's text messages from someone named Alex appearing on their shared iPad, messages far too intimate for a professional relationship. I never mentioned my discovery to Jeffrey, unwilling to add emotional pain to his physical suffering. The chemotherapy ravaged what remained of Jeffrey's strength. I learned to administer anti-nausea medications, manage his pain pump, and recognize the subtle signs that preceded his violent vomiting episodes. Our roles reversed completely. I was once again caring for my child, only this time I couldn't kiss away the pain or promise that tomorrow would be better. During a rare lucid moment between pain medications, Jeffrey reached for my hand one evening. "Mom, we need to talk about what happens after," he whispered, his once robust voice now thin as paper. "Don't talk like that," I pleaded. "You need to focus on getting stronger." He shook his head weakly. "We both know where this is going. I need to know you'll be okay." "I'll be fine," I assured him, though neither of us believed it. "I've made arrangements," he continued. "I've updated my will. You won't have to worry about money or housing. I've made sure of it." I nodded, unable to speak through my tears. We sat in silence, holding hands until he drifted back to sleep, his breathing labored and shallow. By month 4, Jeffrey was bedridden, requiring around-the-clock care. I slept on a recliner beside his hospital bed, now positioned in the first-floor study. Hospice nurses visited daily, but the bulk of his care fell to me. Cassandra had all but moved out, claiming Jeffrey's medical equipment triggered her anxiety. One Tuesday evening, while changing Jeffrey's sheets, I found a photograph tucked under his pillow. Cassandra embracing a dark-haired man outside a downtown hotel. My heart broke for my son, realizing he knew about her betrayal, but had chosen to bear this additional pain in silence. The end came swiftly on a quiet Sunday morning in April. I was reading to Jeffrey from his favorite childhood book, The Call of the Wild, when his breathing pattern changed. I set the book aside and held his hand as his breaths grew further apart. His eyes fluttered open briefly, focusing on my face with sudden clarity. "Mom," he whispered so faintly I had to lean closer. "Thank you for everything." Those were his final words. My beautiful boy slipped away as sunlight streamed through the windows, painting golden patterns across his peaceful face. Cassandra wasn't there. She hadn't answered my urgent texts that morning. She arrived 3 hours later, her eyes suspiciously free of redness, her grief seemingly performative rather than genuine. "I was at brunch with my sister," she explained flatly. "My phone was on silent." I was too numb with grief to question her obvious lie or the faint scent of unfamiliar cologne that clung to her clothes. Jeffrey's funeral was well attended, a testament to the lives he'd touched in his brief 40 years. Partners from his law firm delivered moving eulogies. Former clients spoke of his integrity and compassion. Throughout the service, I sat in the front row accepting condolences from a continuous stream of mourners. Cassandra sat beside me, but maintained a noticeable distance. She received condolences with practiced grace, but showed no tears. Several times I caught her checking her phone, her fingers typing rapid responses to messages. "He would have appreciated the turnout," I said to her after the service, attempting to bridge the growing gulf between us. "Yes, Jeffrey always did like being the center of attention," she replied with an edge to her voice that stunned me into silence. The reception following the funeral was held at their Lake Forest home. I busied myself hosting, finding comfort in the ritual of caring for others. Cassandra disappeared halfway through, claiming a migraine needed her to lie down. I later discovered she had left the house entirely. That night, exhausted from grief and the emotional labor of the funeral, I fell into a deep sleep in the guest room that had been my home for the past 4 months. I woke to the sound of the front door slamming around 3 in the morning. Through the crack in my door, I watched Cassandra stumble up the stairs, her high heels dangling from her fingers. The next morning marked the beginning of the most devastating chapter of my life. I came downstairs to find Cassandra sitting at the kitchen island, impeccably dressed in a business suit despite it being Saturday. An empty suitcase lay open on the floor beside her. "Good morning," I said cautiously, sensing the tension radiating from her rigid posture. "We need to talk, Jean," she replied, not bothering with pleasantries. "Now that Jeffrey is gone, we need to discuss your living arrangements." I blinked, caught off guard. "My living arrangements?" "Yes, I understand you've been here while Jeffrey was sick, but he's gone now. It's time for you to return to your apartment." The coldness in her voice sent a chill through me. "Cassandra, I gave up my apartment when I moved here to care for Jeffrey. The lease expired months ago." Her expression hardened. "That was your decision, not mine. I need my space back. I'm grieving too, you know." "Of course you're grieving," I said, trying to be understanding despite her callousness. "We both love Jeffrey. Maybe we could support each other through this difficult time." Cassandra laughed, a harsh, brittle sound entirely devoid of humor. "Support each other, Jean, let's be honest. We were never close. You were Jeffrey's mother, not mine. With him gone, there's no reason for us to pretend anymore." I felt as though I'd been slapped. "But this house, I contributed to the down payment. Jeffrey and I had an agreement that I would always have a place here if needed." Her eyes narrowed. "Do you have that in writing? Because verbal agreements with dead people don't hold much weight." "How can you be so cruel?" I whispered, tears filling my eyes. "He's been gone less than 48 hours. "Don't be dramatic, Jean," she snapped, pushing the empty suitcase toward me with her foot. "Pack your bags and learn to survive. Jeffrey isn't here to coddle you anymore." I stood frozen, unable to comprehend the viciousness of her attack. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not my problem," she replied with a dismissive wave. "You're a grown woman. Figure it out." "The $150,000 I gave you for this house," I began. "Was a gift," she interrupted. "Not an investment. You have no legal claim here." Jeffrey promised I would always have a home with you both, I insisted, my voice breaking. I don't know what promises Jeffrey made you, Cassandra said coldly, but I have no obligation to honor them. When I didn't immediately move toward the suitcase, her demeanor shifted from cold to threatening. I have plans for this house, Jean, plans that don't include a mother-in-law. If you're not packed and gone by this afternoon, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. The cruelty of her ultimatum delivered while my son's funeral flowers still filled the living room broke something inside me. In a daze, I returned to the guest room and began packing my belongings, tears streaming down my face. As I placed the last of my clothes into the suitcase, I heard the distinct sound of locks being changed downstairs. When I emerged with my bags, Cassandra handed me a single new key. I've had the locks changed for security. This key works for today only. I'll be deactivating it this evening, so don't get any ideas about returning when I'm not here. In shock, I wheeled my suitcases to my 12-year-old Toyota Camry, the car Jeffrey had insisted on maintaining for me, even after offering to buy me a newer model. As I placed my bags in the trunk, the reality of my situation hit me with full force. At 68 years old, I was effectively homeless. The first night in my car was surreal. I parked in the lot of a 24-hour supermarket, reclining the driver's seat as far as it would go, which wasn't nearly enough for comfortable sleep. Every sound, shopping carts, car doors, distant voices, jolted me awake. By dawn, my back ached, and my mind swirled with disbelief at how quickly my life had unraveled. Where could I go? My modest circle of friends were all retirees like me, living in small apartments or senior communities with strict guest policies. My sister lived in Arizona, battling her own health issues and barely getting by on Social Security. The few distant cousins I had were practically strangers after decades without contact. That first morning, I used the supermarket restroom to freshen up as best I could, brushing my teeth and washing my face while avoiding eye contact with other customers. I purchased a coffee and breakfast sandwich, then sat in my car making calls to local extended-stay hotels. The rates were far beyond what I could afford on my limited monthly Social Security check. By day 3, I'd developed a routine of sorts. I'd spend mornings at the local library using their computers to search for affordable housing options and filling out applications for senior apartments. Afternoons were for showering at the YMCA, where I purchased a temporary membership using my dwindling savings. Evenings found me in a different parking lot each night, Walmart one night, a hospital the next, a quiet residential street when I felt particularly desperate. The practicalities of homelessness quickly became overwhelming. Where to use the bathroom at night, how to keep food from spoiling without refrigeration, the constant fear of being approached by security or police, the humiliation of changing clothes in public restrooms. Each day my appearance grew more disheveled despite my best efforts. I attempted to contact some of Jeffrey's colleagues from his law firm, but my calls went straight to voicemail, never returned. Was Cassandra spreading lies about me? Had she portrayed me as a burdensome, unstable old woman best avoided? By the beginning of the second week, my situation grew more desperate. The small amount of cash I had on hand was nearly gone. My cell phone service would be disconnected soon without payment. The physical strain of sleeping in a car had aggravated my arthritis, making even simple movements painful. One rainy Thursday night, parked in the far corner of a suburban Walmart lot, I reached my lowest point. Water leaked through a small crack in my passenger window, soaking my blanket. The temperature had dropped unexpectedly, and my car's heater worked sporadically at best. I held a framed photograph of Jeffrey, one of the few possessions I'd managed to grab, and considered my limited options. There was a state-run nursing home that accepted indigent seniors located in a notoriously neglected facility on the city's south side. I'd read about it while researching at the library. Understaffed, underfunded, with residents often sedated to manage the shortage of caretakers. Was this to be my fate after a lifetime of hard work and sacrifice? "Jeffrey," I whispered to his photograph as rain drummed on the roof of my car, "I don't know how to do this without you. I don't know how to survive this." For the first time since his death, I allowed myself to fully break down, sobbing uncontrollably in the darkness of my car, my cries muffled by the sound of the storm. I cried until exhaustion finally pulled me into restless sleep, still clutching my son's picture to my chest. The next morning, day 14 of my homelessness, I was awakened by the persistent ringing of my cell phone. The screen showed an unfamiliar number with a Chicago area code. Normally, I might have ignored it, assuming it was a telemarketer, but in my desperate situation, any call might represent help. "Hello?" I answered, my voice hoarse from crying and lack of proper hydration. "Is this Jean Wilkins?" a male voice inquired. "Yes, this is she." "Mrs. Wilkins, my name is Michael Donovan. I was a colleague of your son Jeffrey at Peterson and Williams before he started his own practice, and I've been serving as his personal attorney. I've been trying to locate you for the past 2 weeks." "Thank God I've found you," Michael Donovan continued, his voice reflecting genuine concern. "I've been looking everywhere since the funeral. Where are you?" The simple kindness in his tone nearly broke me again. 2 weeks of isolation and survival had left me starved for basic human compassion. I'm in my car," I admitted, embarrassment coloring my voice. "At a Walmart parking lot." "Your car?" He sounded confused. "Mrs. Wilkins, why aren't you at Jeffrey's house?" The dam broke. Through tears, I explained everything. Cassandra's cruelty, being thrown out the day after the funeral, having nowhere to go, living in my car for 2 weeks. "That's impossible," Michael interrupted. "Jeffrey made specific provisions for you. Didn't Cassandra tell you about the will?" My heart stopped. "Will, no. She never mentioned anything about a will." Michael's voice turned hard. "Mrs. Wilkins' Jeffrey revised his will just 1 month before he passed away. He was very concerned about your future welfare. I need to see you immediately. Where exactly are you? I'm coming to get you right now." 45 minutes later, a sleek black Audi pulled into the parking space beside my weathered Toyota. A tall man in his early 50s emerged, his concerned expression deepening when he saw my disheveled state through the car window. I rolled down my window, embarrassed by my appearance, unwashed hair, wrinkled clothes, the obvious signs of having lived in a vehicle. "Mrs. Wilkins," he asked gently, "I'm Michael Donovan." "Please call me Jean," I replied, attempting to maintain some dignity. Michael insisted I follow him to his downtown office. There, his assistant immediately showed me to a private bathroom where I could freshen up. Clean towels, toiletries, even a change of clothes that his assistant had quickly purchased from a nearby department store awaited me. An hour later, showered and wearing clean clothes, I sat across from Michael in his elegant corner office, a hot meal from the building's cafe in front of me. "I've been trying to find you since the funeral," he explained. "I went to the house multiple times. Cassandra told me you had moved to Florida to stay with relatives. She claimed you left no forwarding address because you needed space to grieve." "I have no relatives in Florida," I said quietly. I suspected she was lying. Michael nodded. "Jeffrey had expressed concerns about her behavior toward you in the months before his death. That's partly why he revised his will." Michael opened a folder on his desk and extracted a thick legal document. "Jean Jeffrey made certain you would be taken care of. He left you 40% ownership of the Lake Forest house, a managed investment account worth approximately $750,000, and 50% ownership of his law practice, which continues to generate income through his partners." I stared at him in disbelief. "But Cassandra said—" "Cassandra knew about these provisions," Michael interrupted firmly. "I met with both of them when the will was finalized. She was furious, but Jeffrey was adamant. He told me privately that he was worried about her treatment of you if something happened to him." Tears welled in my eyes again. Even dying, my son had been protecting me. "There's more," Michael continued, pulling out another file. "I have documentation of the $150,000 you contributed to their home purchase. Jeffrey insisted on recording it as a partial ownership investment, not a gift, despite Cassandra's objections. "She changed the locks," I whispered. "She threw me out with nothing." Michael's expression hardened. "What she did wasn't just cruel. It was illegal. She's been deliberately concealing your inheritance, hoping you'd disappear so she could challenge the will later, claiming inability to locate you." He turned his computer monitor so I could see the screen. "Jeffrey sent me these emails expressing concern about Cassandra's behavior. He suspected she was having an affair and was worried about how she might treat you if something happened to him." The emails revealed a side of Jeffrey's marriage I hadn't fully understood: his growing awareness of Cassandra's infidelity, his determination to protect me financially, and his regret at not seeing her true character sooner. "What happens now?" I asked, feeling overwhelmed by these revelations. "First, you'll stay in the corporate apartment we maintain for visiting clients. It's fully furnished and 2 blocks from this office," Michael explained. "Tomorrow morning we're going to the Lake Forest house with a police escort to assert your legal rights to the property and your belongings." For the first time in 2 weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope breaking through my despair. My son, even in death, was still taking care of me. The next morning, Michael picked me up from the corporate apartment where I'd enjoyed my first real sleep in 2 weeks. The studio was small but luxurious compared to my car: a real bed, hot shower, kitchenette, and blessed silence instead of parking lot noise. "Are you ready for this?" Michael asked as we drove toward Lake Forest. "Cassandra won't make it easy." "I'm ready," I replied with newfound determination. "Jeffrey wouldn't want me to give up." We arranged to meet Officer Ramirez, a sympathetic police officer Michael had briefed on the situation at a coffee shop near the house. The officer reviewed my identification and the legal documents Michael provided. "I'm just here to keep the peace," Officer Ramirez explained. "This is a civil matter, but given the circumstances, we want to ensure everyone's safety." When our small convoy pulled into the circular driveway of the Lake Forest home, Cassandra's Mercedes was parked outside. Michael had deliberately chosen a Saturday morning, knowing she'd likely be home. The doorbell chimed melodically, a sound that had once signaled coming home, but now filled me with anxiety. Footsteps approached, and the door swung open to reveal Cassandra, immaculately dressed as always, though I noticed dark circles under her eyes, partially concealed by makeup. Her expression transformed from practiced politeness to shock to anger in seconds. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her gaze darting between me, Michael, and the uniformed officer. "Mrs. Chapman," Michael began formally, "I'm Michael Donovan, Jeffrey's attorney. I believe you and I have met several times regarding your late husband's estate. We're here regarding Jean's legal rights to this property and her inheritance." Cassandra's face hardened. "There must be some mistake. Jean has no rights to this house." Michael removed documents from his briefcase. "On the contrary, Jean owns 40% of this property as stipulated in your husband's will and reinforced by her initial investment of $150,000 toward the purchase. We have all the documentation here." "This is ridiculous," Cassandra sputtered. "You can't just show up with bogus papers and a police officer." "The papers are legitimate, Mrs. Chapman," Officer Ramirez interjected calmly, "and Jean has the right to access her property." "I'll call my lawyer," Cassandra threatened, reaching for her phone. "Excellent idea," Michael replied smoothly. "In fact, I encourage it. While we're at it, perhaps your lawyer would be interested in these." He held up a USB drive. "These are files from the private investigator Jeffrey hired last year. Extensive documentation of your relationship with Alexander Brentwood, including hotel receipts, photographs, and text messages, all while your husband was dying of cancer." The color drained from Cassandra's face. That's invasion of privacy. Actually, as Jeffrey's attorney, I'm obligated to present all relevant information that might impact his estate. Your infidelity, while morally reprehensible, isn't my primary concern. Your deliberate attempt to conceal Jean's inheritance and illegally evict her from property she partially owns, however, is very much my concern. For several seconds, Cassandra remained frozen, visibly calculating her options. Finally, she stepped aside, allowing us to enter. "This isn't over," she hissed as I walked past. "You're right about that," Michael replied. "We're just getting started." Inside, I was shocked to see how much had changed in 2 weeks. Jeffrey's photographs had been removed from the walls. His office had been completely cleared out. Even the furniture had been rearranged, as if erasing all evidence of his existence. "Where are Jeffrey's things?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. Cassandra shrugged. "I donated some items. Others are in storage. I'm redecorating." "You had no right," I said quietly. "Those weren't just your memories to discard." "Mrs. Chapman," Michael interrupted. I need to inform you that the court has granted our emergency petition to freeze all assets related to Jeffrey's estate, including the contents of this house. Nothing further is to be removed, sold, or donated until the will is fully executed." "You can't do that," Cassandra protested. "The judge disagreed," Michael replied, handing her another document. "This restraining order prevents you from removing any additional items from the property. Furthermore, as Jean owns 40% of this house, she has the legal right to reside here." "I'm not living with her," Cassandra spat. "That's entirely your decision," Michael said calmly. "However, you cannot prevent Jean from occupying her legal property. If that arrangement is unacceptable to you, I suggest you find alternative accommodation." While Michael and Officer Ramirez continued explaining the legal situation to an increasingly agitated Cassandra, I made my way upstairs to the guest room where I'd stayed while caring for Jeffrey. To my surprise, it remained largely untouched, perhaps the one space Cassandra hadn't bothered to redecorate yet. I sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed by the dramatic reversal of my circumstances. 2 weeks ago, I'd been forcibly removed from this house, reduced to sleeping in my car, and wondering how I would survive. Now I was returning with the full force of the law behind me, reclaiming what my son had wanted me to have all along. The court proceedings that followed were mercifully brief. Faced with overwhelming evidence, the legally executed will documentation of my financial contribution to the house, Jeffrey's emails expressing concern about Cassandra's behavior, and records of her attempt to conceal my inheritance, Cassandra's attorney advised her to settle. She was required to provide a full accounting of all items removed from the house, return Jeffrey's personal effects, and reimburse the estate for anything sold. Additionally, she was ordered to pay my legal fees and temporary housing costs for the 2 weeks I'd been homeless. 3 weeks after our confrontation, Cassandra moved out, choosing to relocate rather than share the house with me. As part of the settlement, she received a buyout for her share of the property, significantly less than she'd hoped for, but enough to purchase a small condo downtown. The last time I saw her was during the final walkthrough with our respective attorneys. As she handed over her keys, a flicker of something, perhaps regret or shame, crossed her face. "I loved him too, you know," she said quietly, "in my own way." I simply nodded, unable to forgive, but too exhausted for further conflict. Some wounds were too deep for words to heal. 6 months after reclaiming my place in the house, Jeffrey and I had both loved. I sat in the garden we had planted together, watching autumn leaves drift from the maple trees. The initial victory over Cassandra had gradually given way to the quieter, more difficult work of rebuilding my life and healing from both grief and trauma. The first weeks alone in the large house had been challenging. Echoes of Jeffrey seemed to linger in every room: his favorite chair in the library, the kitchen where he'd taught himself gourmet cooking during law school, the staircase where I'd helped him walk during his final months. Sometimes the memories were comforting, other times overwhelmingly painful. With Michael's guidance, I'd carefully managed the financial aspects of my inheritance. The investment account Jeffrey had established provided a comfortable monthly income far beyond my previous Social Security checks. His law partners had honored his wishes, maintaining my 50% ownership while handling all operational aspects of the business. "Jeffrey structured everything brilliantly," Michael explained during one of our regular meetings. "He knew exactly what you'd need and made sure it would be provided with minimal stress or management on your part." I decided to honor Jeffrey's memory by establishing a scholarship foundation in his name. The Jeffrey Wilkins Memorial Scholarship would help children of single parents pursue legal education, creating a legacy that reflected both his profession and our shared life experience. Michael had become more than just my attorney. He was a trusted friend and connection to the son I'd lost. Over coffee one afternoon, he shared an insight that helped me understand Jeffrey's final months. "He knew about Cassandra's affair almost from the beginning," Michael revealed. "He hired the investigator not for divorce purposes but to protect you. He was gathering evidence in case she tried exactly what she did, throwing you out and denying your rightful inheritance." "Why didn't he confront her?" I asked. Michael shrugged sadly. "He told me he didn't have the energy for that battle while fighting cancer. He chose to focus his remaining strength on making arrangements for you instead." That knowledge, that Jeffrey had sacrificed even his rightful anger to secure my future, made his loss both more painful and more precious. I began volunteering at a local senior center, using my experience to help other older adults navigate housing insecurity and legal challenges. The 2 weeks I'd spent homeless had opened my eyes to the vulnerability many seniors faced, often one crisis away from similar circumstances. Working with a local nonprofit, I helped establish an emergency housing fund specifically for seniors in crisis. When interviewed by the local newspaper about my donation to launch the fund, I shared my story publicly for the first time. "No one should spend their golden years sleeping in a car," I told the reporter. "Sometimes all people need is a temporary bridge to help them through unexpected difficulties." The article generated additional donations and brought others in similar situations forward for help. What had begun as my personal tragedy was transforming into a mission that gave new purpose to my life. One autumn afternoon, while shopping at the local grocery store, I unexpectedly encountered Cassandra in the produce section. She looked thinner, less polished than during our marriage. For a moment, we both froze, uncertain whether to acknowledge each other or pretend we hadn't noticed. To my surprise, she approached first. "Jean, you look well." "Thank you," I replied cautiously. "How are you managing?" she said with a tight smile. "The condo is small, but it's enough for just me. Alex and that didn't work out." I nodded, unsure what response she wanted. Part of me felt she deserved whatever loneliness or regret she was experiencing. Another part recognized the pointlessness of harboring resentment. "I saw your interview in the paper," she continued. "The Senior Housing Initiative. Jeffrey would have been proud of that." The mention of my son's name from her lips still stung, but less sharply than before. "Yes, I think he would have been." An awkward silence stretched between us until she finally spoke again. "I'm sorry, Jean, for everything. What I did to you was unforgivable." I studied her face, searching for sincerity, and finding what appeared to be genuine remorse. "Thank you for saying that." We didn't embrace or offer false promises of reconciliation. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt. But as we parted ways, I felt a lightening of the bitterness I'd carried. Forgiveness, I was learning, benefited the forgiver as much as the forgiven. Back home, I sat in Jeffrey's study, now my favorite room for reading and reflection. I'd preserved much of his space while adding touches that made it mine as well. His law books still lined the shelves, but now shared space with my novels and gardening guides. His desk remained in the center of the room, though now I was the one who sat there writing letters, paying bills, and planning the future. On the wall hung a new portrait of Jeffrey. Not the formal one from his law office, but a candid photograph taken during a fishing trip years earlier. His smile was relaxed, genuine, his eyes crinkled with laughter. It was how I wanted to remember him, vibrant, joyful, fully alive. Below his picture sat a small wooden box containing the few possessions I'd had during my 2 weeks of homelessness, a change of clothes, his photograph, my old keychain. I kept them as a reminder of how quickly life can change and how resilience can emerge from our darkest moments. From tragedy, I had found new purpose. From betrayal, new wisdom about legal protection and self-advocacy. From loss, a deeper appreciation for community and connection. In the garden that afternoon, watching butterflies dance among the late-blooming asters Jeffrey and I had planted together, I felt his presence not as a crushing grief, but as a gentle continuity. The son I had raised continued to protect and provide for me, even beyond death. The love we shared had proven stronger than all attempts to sever it. Have you ever experienced a betrayal from someone you trusted or found yourself starting over later in life? Share your story in the comments below. And if my journey has touched your heart or helped you in any way, please hit that like button, subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that it's never too late for a new beginning. Remember to get your legal affairs in order and protect yourself and your loved ones with proper documentation. Thank you for listening to my story, and may you find strength for whatever challenges you're facing in your own life.